At the eve of the end, the demon of Hatzoatl has finally come for me.
You will suffer, Architect of
Ignition! I can't give up. I must save my people.
You know why we're here! It happened! It cannot be stopped!
No, I will succeed.
You big-headed...
How foolish. I plan for every... No! Do not fail me. Not now! How could this happen? All I've done. All that I sacrificed.
Freezing strike! Need more mana.
Hey guys, Dabadoo here. So, sorry about not posting a video for the last couple of days. I was just busy with RL stuff. Hopefully this video makes up for it. So I was able to complete the campaign through some catch up, and I was able to get to tier 7 maps. The map boss that you saw, the Crowbell that I killed in the video, was I believe a tier 6 boss. So that's kind of how the build plays right now. And I might be implementing other tech as well in the future, but this is the current plan. I've optimized the build, I believe. I've gotten my spirit to 200 or 201, so that let me fit in cast on crit for kind of like the end game setup, and it's performing quite well. And I'm really enjoying the build. I still die once in a while, but it's usually due to piloting error. I am generally quite tanky. I have a lot of energy shield, I have good evasion, and I free stuff. But, deaths happen in this game. I think I have around 80 deaths right now, and I'm in tier 7 maps. What the trick is to avoid deaths, at least for me, is like if you get into some tricky situation, feel free to do Wave of Frost, because you'll flip backwards and, shoot out a Wave of Frost, which will freeze the monsters. That's kind of like a retreating mechanism that's kind of fun to use, and you feel like you're dancing around with your character. But anyways, what I want to do is I want to talk about the optimizations and tweaks and changes that I've made from day one. The build has significantly changed from the concept that I had in day one, and that's because that was based off of like data mined information, and I theory crafted a build off of it, and some of that information was wrong, and as I played the game I tested things out, and they've adjusted things as well, like cast on shock and cast on freeze. And I currently have the plan that you see in this video. So I'm going to start from the very beginning, from the progression from Act 1 all the way to Act 6, and then the end game setup as well. I've been getting a lot of questions in the comments, and there's some confusion about gem switch ups and setups, like how to get your unlimited power charges through using Resonance and Combat Frenzy, things like that. So I want to cover everything from start to finish, and when you're going to switch things out, and what the plan is. Okay, so of note, when you watch any of my videos, I try to update the description with the latest setup and links to older videos as well. And I also try to pin in all of my comments all, the latest setup that I have, the latest gems and latest passive skill pathing that I have, right here as well as a pinned comment. So we're going to start at the, Act 1 passive skill. So you just click this link here. It'll take you to the PoE2DB website with the skill tree on it. I have all the tabs up already, so we click this. This will take us to the passive tree here. To start the game, this flat energy shield and evasion is helpful. Also the mana regen. You're going to come up here, you're going to get this. And then you're going to go here to get the stun threshold and faster energy recharge. Also very useful to start the game here. And then you're just going to build tank to start. Okay. And then you go here for the attack speed. Then what you want to do is you want to go here for the skill speed and mana regen. Now skill speed and attack speed kind of also is defensive in some ways because, if you're attacking faster, if you're moving faster, and you hit the monster before the monster hits you, that's kind of defensive in that you have a chance to kill the monster, freeze the monster, whatever, before the monster can hit you first. So, and the mana regen, again, you're going to want mana regen earlier on in the game. I hate using mana flask. It's annoying. And yeah, it's just useful. What's really great about the Monk or Shadow starting area is that they have really great passive skills around it, passives and notables. So, when building the skill tree out elsewhere, you can mix and match, put points into like their attack damage and different things here, save up some points and then, spend 3 points to buy a notable somewhere. But anyways, so going back to the pathing that you want to do, come around here. You can tag these if you want, okay? But you're going to come over here for the freeze buildup because, again, this build is focused on freeze. And, for the first, I'd say for the entire campaign, like getting, building out to this main area from the freeze buildup, passive skills is probably the best way to do it. Better than crit, better than skill speed. To start, you can switch things up once the character has better gear and has progressed. You won't want to get this as well because move speed is very useful. It makes you go fast and you're pretty slow in this game. And then you come up over here for more mana regen. To start the game, I would suggest going for the increased mana regeneration rate as opposed to the reduced mana cost of skills. Once you get like 5 sockets or 6 socket skills that have a lot more supports and then therefore cost a lot more mana to use, you can consider getting this, but this should give you a better return on investment to start the game. Okay, so let's talk about the skill gems that you'll be getting. So this is the Act 1 and Act 2 skill gems. You'll be switching these out as you progress through the game. These are just the skills that you have access to start. There's a lot better skills, or there's some better skills that you'll be implementing, but they have higher level requirements. You're not going to be able to get those gems to start. So I would suggest probably your first gem you get is Glacial Cascade. It's a great poker. Probably put Cold Infusion and Cold Penetration on it. Falling Thunder is another skill to pick up right away. It's a pretty good AoE attack. You can also support Jagged Ground on it, which is nice because when you slam this out, it'll create like an AoE Jagged Ground around you, which will slow monsters down and put a DOT on them, I think. And then you also have Lightning Infusion because it's a lightning skill. I would also suggest Killing Palm. This is a calling skill, so when a monster is low, you'll just like dash to him and kill him. And when you kill him, you'll generate a power charge, and also you'll get Innervate. So for 3 seconds, you'll get a big steroid buff on your lightning damage for all of your attacks, which is nice because it's automatically calls. When they're called, if they are shocked, that is, they will you'll get a buff. Frozen Locust is your way to freeze monsters beyond Glacial Cascade at the very beginning. Basically use it kind of as a retreat tool. So if you're getting overwhelmed, you can cast this out. It'll create a crystal on the ground. If a boss walks over the crystal, it's kind of like a landmine. It'll blow up and it'll freeze the boss. So this is mostly a freezing mechanism to start. You'll be switching this out for something else. Frost Bomb is also great to pick up because you do a lot of cold skills. You do cold damage. Frost Bomb will put cold exposure on the enemy. So I would suggest Second Wind so you can cast 2 of these at once, and also Strip Away so the cold exposure that you apply with Frost Bomb is even more effective. All right, and then we got Herald of Ice. You can instead use Ghost Dance if you want. For the supports, I would suggest Frost Nexus and Ice Bite to start. because when this does trigger and you kill monsters with it, they are frozen, and that will automatically trigger Ice Bite, and that will then give you, a 35% added cold damage buff, similar to the Innervate on killing Palm. Now you also have Ice Strike. Pick this up when you can get it. It's a great melee skill. It's a great close combat skill, and I would suggest putting Crescendo in it or Concentrated Effect for the second support. But Martial Tempo would be your first support because attacking with this is very important. Charge Staff is, you won't get this right away, and your power charges will be going to Falling Thunder at the beginning of the game. But once you pick up Charge Staff, you won't really be using Falling Thunder. You can switch this out because you don't want Falling Thunder to take your power charges. You want your power charges going to your Charge Staff. So the power charges you generate from killing Palm will then go to Charge Staff, okay? And then for the supports for Charge Staff, and these are very important supports, taking this build forward into the end game, you'll recognize that probably Ice Strike is your most important skill to get sockets for, and then Charge Staff is your second most important skill to get charges for. Why is that? Because you can put all this lovely, great stuff on Charge Staff. Now, you will need Persistence on Charge Staff to start, because you don't have unlimited power charge check with Resonance and Combat Frenzy. So that's probably the first thing you're going to pick up. And then I would suggest Blind. So all of your little waves that you shoot out from Charge Staff will blind enemies. And because you're an evasion-based character, that's very important. And then, of course, Tempest Spell. This is your boss killing skill. Get this as soon as you can. You drop it on a boss's face, and it'll wreck their day. Probably the first support you get for it is Rage. Because it'll give you a giant rage buff during the middle of the boss fight, which will increase your attack speed. If you can get a Jewel with, gain rage on melee hit, that's also great as well. And then Heavy Swing is probably the next support that I would apply to this. You won't get that, I don't think, initially, at least right away, so you might have to wait a couple levels, but that would be your second support that you'd put on there. So those are the skills to start, okay? And again, to reiterate, you can use Ghost Dance instead of Herald of Ice. But just to keep things simple, just put Herald of Ice in if you have issues with following builds and you're new to the game, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the Act 2 and then 3 progression, okay? So, again, from the starting area, you're still defensive. You'll be switching out for something more offensive, in the second part of the campaign. But you're still here. You still have these. You also bought, Essence of the Storm. You're still over here. You're coming up over here. Then you also want to get this, the attack speed here and the attack damage here. And then you're going to come up here. Don't get Resonance yet because you need to be high enough level to get Combat Frenzy. Resonance isn't going to do you any good unless you can acquire and use Combat Frenzy, which requires a higher level. You probably be at least Act 3 before you can use this. But the plan is you come up over here, you get this crit stuff over here. Part of why you're getting this is to get the intelligence and dexterity, because you're also going to need attributes. And so this doubles as not only something that's great, damage for your character, but also attribute requirements, which is really nice. So it's like a double dipping. And then you come up over here, and you would want to get a Deadly Force because, these are really nice. It's just 20% damage, essentially. And then you come up over here, you get more attack speed. And this is also very nice. Deep Trance, reduced cost of skills, very useful. And then you come over here to get the hybrid Energy Shield and Evasion for Inner Faith. So the first major investments in Energy Shield and Evasion should be right here and right here beyond the initial starting area, okay? So this is before you slot in Combat Frenzy. This is before you have Resonance. This is the plan, okay? But anyways, let's talk about the skills that are part of this setup. So Stormwave is going to be your new poker instead of Glacial Cascade. It's a lightning skill, okay? Also, if you get enough extra spirit on your build, eventually you can fit in Cast on Shock, and then you can put on Orb of Storms with that, and when you're shooting out storm waves, it will create an orb of storms around you, and those will shoot out at the monster along with your storm wave. So you're like, shooting 2 lightning bolts at them instead of 1 every time you shoot. Killing Palm, you're still using this. I would suggest Innervate, Profusion, and Close Combat. I mean, Killing Palm just, calls them anyways, but beyond Ice Strike, this is your other skill that, being close to enemies, you'll be close to enemies when you're hurting them, okay? So might as well put Close Combat on here. The other one is Wave of Frost. Again, you're not going to get these skills all right away, but Wave of Frost is going to be, another replacement skill, and you're going to use, it's a replacement skill for the Lotus skill, okay? And then I would say, again, Storm Wave is a replacement skill for Glacial Cascade. So the Lotus skill that dropped the Ice Crystal, you're instead going to be using Wave of Frost. It's better than Lotus, and this also is a retreating mechanism as well. For the supports, the focus of this is to freeze the monster and get them stuck on the ground so you can charge at them and kill them. Now, I would suggest Glacialification and Deep Freeze. To explain how elements work in this game is that basically how much damage you do makes it so you can shock, freeze, etc. a monster, along with some other, status effect chances and things like that. But how you would want to read this is that, supported skills cost 50% more freeze buildup. So in other words, this skill would be freezing as if it would be doing 50% more damage. But it's not actually doing 50% more damage, but it's treating its freezes as if it would, okay? And you also have Deep Freeze, same kind of situation there. And then you have Cold Penetration. It's a support gem, it works, and basically you'll do 30% more damage with this skill, and that's essentially 30% more freeze buildup. So that's good. You still got Frost Bomb on because you're using a lot of cold skills, and you don't have the ascendancy on the tree yet to let you ignore resistance. So you're still using Frost Bomb. And what I would suggest, again, Second Wind, Strip Away, and Spell Echo would probably be the third support. And yes, that will put out another Frost Bomb. It's hard to see, but both of them will blow up at the same time, and they'll have double the little pulses and waves, which is really nice. Then you got, your Herald still. Ice Bite, again, because when you kill monsters, and you'll be killing monsters with the Herald of Ice Explosion, it's nice to have that buff. You got Frost Nexus again, and you also have Magnified Effect, meaning increased AoE on your Herald, not your other skills. Not Wave of Frost, but actually Herald, because the AoE on this is very important because it's a way to blow up packs of monsters while moving between them. And then you have Ice Strike. This is going to be kind of your main focus skill. This is what you'll be doing most of your damage with, most likely. That in conjunction with Tempest Spell, really. But you only really use Tempest Spell on bosses or elites. But you go Martial Tempo, Crescendo, and Concentrated Effect. People have asked me, why am I using Concentrated Effect on Ice Strike? It's a strike. Yeah, it's a strike, but it's also AoE. And for whatever reason, Concentrated Effect, it increases the damage of Ice Strike by 40% more, which is nuts. And its downsides doesn't really affect Ice Strike. So, great. Use Concentrated Effect. You have Charge Staff. Again, you'll be using this through the entire game. And it's, a very important aspect of your character. Beyond Ice Strike, getting sockets for Ice Strike, sockets for Charge Staff is going to be your second most important thing to get sockets for. Now, you get Blind as a support, so all your little shock waves that come out when you hit monsters will blind them. And again, you have Persistence for the extra duration. And then you have Calling Strike. So these things call as well. You can stick Maim on here if you want. Because you don't accidentally probably want to call stuff with this, and you actually want to call stuff with your Killing Palm. But that's just something to think about. You can try, calling on here or not. I would probably suggest calling, and just if you accidentally call the monster with one of those little waves, oh well, not a big deal. It's dead. You'll have plenty of chances to use Killing Palm. But again, maim is something you can try out as well. This way your little waves that come out will blind and maim guys, and maiming slows them down. So you have the chills to slow them by 30%. You have maims. I think that's, I'll just say 30% or whatever. So that's, you slow, freeze, everything. Locking monsters down is fun. Okay, then you also have Tempest Spell. Again, this is basically you drop this on elites and bosses and it will wreck their day. I would suggest Heavy Swing and Rage as we talked about. And the next support you'd put on here is Inevitable Critical. Okay, because you don't use this all the time. It has a chance to build up to 100%. When you drop it, it will then be at 100% chance to crit. So it'll hit even harder when it drops on their face. So that's nice. Okay, so let's talk about the gem loadout that you'll be using for the cruel difficulty in the campaign. That's Acts 4, 5, and 6. At this point, we'll be assuming that you're high enough level to run Combat Frenzy to acquire it, and you also have Resonance as well as a skill point on the tree, because Combat Frenzy, when you freeze stuff, it will generate a Frenzy charge. But you don't want frenzy charges, you want power charges, and you switch the frenzy charges to power charges from resonance over here, okay? So this is like you're basically a high enough level to implement the skill gems that you want, and you're going to take these skill gems to endgame essentially, and you'll be adding additional skill gems that are not listed here with the more spirit that you acquire, okay? So let's talk about Stormwave. Stormwave is going to be a replacement for your Wave of Thunder and your Glacial Cascade, essentially. It's a way to poke monsters. We talked about it before. Same setup, same concept, okay? Now, instead of Killing Palm, you're taking Killing Palm out. You're using the Hand of Chayula instead. This is your initiator, or one of your initiators. More importantly, it's a gap closer. And what it will do is it will let you charge the monster, curse, and mark them, okay? So what I don't have shown here is that Voltaic Mark is the mark that you're going to want to use, because after you kill the monster with Voltaic Mark on it, it'll make a big shock nova around the monster, okay? And but doesn't show up here on the website, but just assume that's going to be the second support. The third support that you'll be using on this is Hexbloom. People are talking about using Cursed Ground. Based off of my testing, Cursed Ground doesn't work. I've always assumed Hexbloom was the way to go, and based on my testing and play, use Hexbloom. So Hypothermia, Voltaic Mark, and then Hexbloom are going to be your supports when you have 4 sockets. You're not up to 5 or 6 yet. So now let's talk about Wave of Frost. You got, again, same things as before. You got your Frost Bomb. Same supports. Herald of Ice. I put Execute on Herald of Ice, okay? Because basically, you charge into a pack, you freeze them, and it blows things up. So, there could be chain reactions of those Ice Nova explosions, and one of them might get a monster, to low life, which I think is like 35% in this game. And then, so the other explosion goes off from like another monster in the area, and that, does more damage. The idea is you'll be killing monsters with Herald of Ice that are all, clustered up when you, freeze them and blow up the pack. And so the explosion is bigger, and importantly, you still have Ice Bite on here, and that when you trigger this, that will give you, a short duration buff. Adds 35% more cold damage to all your attacks, or added cold damage is great. You got Ice Strike again, same things. Martial Tempo, Crescendo, Concentrate Effect, Charge Staff, Blind, Persistence, and Calling Strike. Okay, is what you're going to want to use. And then you got your Tempest Spell, Heavy Swing, Inevitable Critical, and Rage are the supports. So this is what this is kind of like your skill setup for the entire campaign. In addition to other skills that you'll be running that I can't show them here because this list only supports 9, is that if you fit 30 more spirit in your build, and I have it all noted here, right? So this tells you how much spirit the build requires, And if you get more spirit beyond that, these are the different things that you can add. Okay, so what you basically at this point in the game, you'll probably be getting spirit on your gear. Okay, either in your amulets or your body armor, or perhaps other slots that I'm not aware of. And so if you get 30 more spirit into this, I would suggest Ghost Dance as another passive buff to run. Of note, you will need to get if you do that, you will need to get an unset ring as well for the 10th skill slot to run Ghost Dance. Okay, my current build, I'm currently running 2 unset rings on my character, which I'll be showing off my gear later in the video. But so beyond this, if you get 30 more spirit, beyond what's required here, you get an unset ring and you put Ghost Dance in for another passive buff. Okay. If you get 40 spirit instead of 30 spirit, then you put clarity in the build as well. Okay, so let's talk about the skill tree. As we talked about before, through Acts 2 and 3, you'll be pathing up in this area grabbing this stuff. But you won't get resonance until you're high enough level and have the Combat Frenzy skill gem in your loadout. Okay? But with this new gem setup, it's assuming that's the case, so that's when you switch over to resonance. Then what you're going to want to do is path up in this direction because it's the way you're building your tree out from this point on. I initially planned out going down here. I'm not going down here anymore. I'm going up here. Okay. So when you're up here, you'll get a jewel socket. You also get a jewel socket over here. I would suggest probably for your first gem you get is gain rage on melee hit. It's a red gem or a crimson gem. So put it right over there. And then also, some other jewel here. I keep on calling gems and jewels. Forgive me. I'm probably not the only person who does that. Okay, but they're called passive skill jewels, I think. Okay, not skill gems. So you put it here, go down here, and then you rush this. Okay, this is really great. Get all this stuff. Then what you're going to do is you come down here, you get this. You come down here, you get this. Also, what's great about this Heartstopper or heart stopping is you get the intelligence from this, and you also get the strength from this, which helps satisfy attribute requirements, and similar to for the jugular and also true strike. So this is kind of how your skill tree should be built out by the time you're done with the campaign. And for the ascendancies, again, you're getting I am the Blizzard first, and your second ascendancy is I am the Thunder. I am going to choose Sunder my enemies as my third ascendancy. I'm actually not going to get the Soul Springs Eternal. I'm not going to get Faith as a choice. I'm not going to get And I Shall Rage. I'm going for Sunder my enemies because I want to ignore enemy monster resistance late game. But I don't have that yet, even on my character. That's going to be your third, and that's probably going to be your fourth. Okay, so let's talk about skill pathing for the end game. And what you're going to want to do beyond the campaign. So, this looks very similar to the campaign tree, the Act 6 campaign tree, but what you're doing is you're just filling it out from there. You'll want to switch over to this side for the attack speed and attack damage. You're going to want to go get crit up here instead of the freeze because you'll be using cast on crit at this point. And this is just better return on your investment. You can get more crit. And what you'll be doing is, with the extra points, building out to, 115 points that I have, you'll just be putting points into crit damage. Also, you'll be coming over here for bestial skin and enhanced reflexes. You'll be coming up here for spectral ward. Bestial skin will synergize really nicely with spectral ward. Also, enhanced reflexes will give you a little bit of extra dex, which will help you equip like the late game stabs with like dex requirement of like 170-ish or so. So you're going to have to be able to fit in dex in the build. That's one source of it you can get from there. But yeah, the gist of it for the pathing is you just fill out the tree that you currently have with crit damage and evasion and energy shield. And now, in terms of the ascendancies, your third ascendancy is going to be Sunder my enemies because you'll be critting a lot, and being able to ignore resistance is nice. You're not going to be buying stuff like the penetration, the element penetration on the tree. With this build, you'll just be relying on sunder my enemies to ignore their elemental resistance, which, like the Inquisitor and Path of Exile one's very strong. At late game, you should have like a 40 to 50% chance to crit, if not more. So it should be pretty cool. And then what you're also going to want to get is scatter them to the winds. This way you'll trigger an elemental expression up to 4 times a second whenever you crit them. It's like you can get one every 0.25 seconds. And so not only are you shooting out your shock waves with your charge staff, but you're also shooting out waves or explosions or whatever from elemental expression. So that is the skill tree pathing. Okay. The gem setup is also very similar to the gem setup in Act 4 through 6. The only difference is you just add more sockets to your gems. Okay. Now, in terms of the priority for sockets, I would suggest Ice Strike and Charge Staff, and also Cast on Crit and Tempest Bell. Wave of Frost and Storm Wave are kind of secondary to all that. If you look at this description in the videos, it'll tell you what skill gems are priorities for sockets right here. Priorities for gem sockets, okay? Now, what's not shown again on this list is Ghost Dance, which you'll be able to add with an unset ring, and also Cast on Crit, which you'll be able to add with a second unset ring, and a significant extra amount of spirit as well. Okay, the supports for Cast on Crit will be Eye of Winter, Impetus, Arcane Tempo, and Energy Retention. And that's basically 5 supports. Now, getting all the extra spirit to put Cast on Crit in your build is somewhat difficult. Now, a stopgap or something you can do kind of as a middle ground is get Cast on Shock. It's not as good as Cast on Crit with this build, but it'll do something, okay? And in your Cast on Shock, what you can do is just go Orb of Storms as a spell that it's casting, Impetus, and Arcane Tempo, okay? And also, I just want to point out Dynamism, again, that's very nice because at this point, endgame, you'll be using meta skills. You really won't be using meta skills earlier on in the game. You don't have enough spirit to do it. They're quite spirit hungry. But once you get good enough gear to get either Cast on Shock with enough spirit or Cast on Crit, you definitely want to get Dynamism. You want to rush this over here, okay? So those are the skill gems, and that's the skill tree. Hi guys, welcome to my hideout. So this is my character and my gear. I am level 77. I'm in tier 7 maps right now. And let's just go over what I have equipped. So all of my gear I've crafted myself. My strategies for acquiring gear are checking the vendors on every level up because they sell new items and sometimes those items are good. This guy sells Waystones, so check him. She is great. The Blood Priestess. Sometimes she sells really good items and you can craft them up. So for example, I bought this staff from her. It was not as pretty as its current version, but I think it had like the crit chance affix and a percentage physical damage roll, and it had potential, although the base isn't great. This is the 15% block chest base. I like the quarterstaff bases with more damage and or attack speed. But yeah, I turned a staff that I bought from her into this, and it's a good staff. Now, of note, this staff has 110 dex requirement, which means I can use it with my current character. Although I'm level 77, my dex is only 123. So why am I pointing this out? Well, the big boy staffs later on in the game. Now here's an example of an item I just poached from the auction house. I haven't poached any of my other gear. This is all crafted stuff, but I bought this as is because it was a much better price than 40 exalts. And I'm planning on equipping it when I have enough dex, but I don't have enough dex yet to equip this thing. Now, the downside to this staff is that it doesn't have flat added crit chance to it. So its critical hit chance is only 10%, as opposed to the base of 13%. Critical hit chance base is really important in this game because your percentage chance to increase critical hits is based off of that. And so if you have a 10% chance for increased critical hits, if you have a 10 base, that's plus 10, but if you have a 13 base, that's plus 13. Not sure if that makes sense, but that's how it works. And so that's just something to keep in mind. So you're going to need to get attributes on your gear. Attributes aren't bad stats. You're going to need them for gear like this and probably some of the higher bases as well. Now, why I'm pointing this out is because on my tree, like I'm basically traveled through all the travel nodes I need to. And I have all the, so I could, got all my +5s, my +5s. So I've gotten all my attributes from that. Now I possibly can travel over here and get some dex from here and then get Falcon technique. That might be an option. And that's a way for me to basically get more dex on the tree and also get a bunch of attack speed, which is quite good, but I don't think I'll be doing that. So I'll have to be upgrading my gear eventually to fit in the dex to equip a better quarterstaff. Something else of note is I might just YOLO this, depending on the situation, and throw like a chaos on this. If I can chaos orb one of the suffixes, because the prefixes are quite good. If I get lucky and chaos orb one of those suffixes and change that to crit chance or attack speed, that would be amazing, and that would make this staff even better. But anyways, that's my plans for equipping a staff, and that's just something you guys need to keep in mind to equip your own staffs as well. Now, something else to point out is that I have 2 unset rings. This is really important because, instead of 9 skills, I have 11 skills. The website links to the gem loadouts that I have in the description only support 9 skills, so you're going to be missing 2 skills on that list. Let's just assume there are any of these 2 passive buffs that I'm running, okay? So now you can get away with just 1 unset once you get 200 spirit, okay? But if you're going to do that, then you got to ditch one of these skills, and I would suggest probably ditching Frostbomb, because eventually the plan is for your 3rd ascendancy, you're going to get Sunder My Enemies, which will ignore elemental resistances from monsters. And the main reason why you're using Frostbomb is for the exposure. Okay, so let's talk about the rest of the gear. Now I have those 2 unset rings, like I said. Probably, I would say flat added physical damage is an ideal stat to have, but any type of flat added damage is going to be great for your rings. If it's anything like PoE 1, probably you can get like attack speed as well as an affix. That's something to look for. Life is fine. It's not as necessary as it was in PoE 1, but you're going to want to look for attributes to be able to equip higher level base items, such as a staff. You're going to need to get resistances as well. Unfortunately, you're probably going to get a bunch of accuracy and mana, which you don't really need. Now, the one advantage to having mana, I didn't mean to have this advantage, but all this gear that I self-crafted myself seemed to get a lot of mana on it, okay? And my mana is really high. It's, over 1,000. So the advantage to having such high mana pool, or such a high mana base, is that you don't have to invest as much in mana regen on the tree, because your base mana regen is based off of your total mana. And so I was actually, because I have such an insane amount of mana, I was able to basically save 3 skill points here. And let's consider those 3 skill points spent into, critical damage bonus. And, critical have a critical damage, and just extra crit chance or whatever. So it's pretty powerful in a way. Basically lets you put points elsewhere. So for the most part, you're going to want to look for evasion and energy shield bases, okay? All of these are evasion and energy shield bases. You can also get away with just an evasion rating base item for your body armor if it's really high, and that's because you are utilizing Spectral Ward, which will let you scale your maximum energy shield based off of the evasion of your body armor. And you're eventually also going to get bestial skin as well. So, you know, you can, once you get those two notables, having just a evasion rating body armor could be good as well. You can also get away with energy shield bases instead of evasion rating energy shield bases in some of these slots. But generally, you're trying to have a high evasion. So my evade chance is 58 right now. And you also want a good energy shield. So my energy shield is 1400 right now. Okay. On the tree, you're eventually going to buy all of this stuff here. And if I buy this and I buy this, my evasion and energy shield are going to be much higher. So that's just kind of what you're looking at. For the hat, you know, you want resistances. I believe you can get increased critical chance on the hat as well. So that's something to look forward to. For the amulet, you're going to want to get spirit and resistances and attributes and anything else you need, not necessarily mana. For the body armor, same as the amulet, you're going to want to get spirit. You have to get cast on crit to run that as a passive buff. You need 200 spirit on this build. Okay, and so that means you're going to need to get over 100 spirit from your gear. Okay. Again, don't need life. It's not as important as it was in Path of Exile 1. For the gloves, I think you might be able to get attack speed on gloves. Also, there's crit damage bonus on gloves, just like these gloves have. That's good. Then, you know, added flat damage as well is something you can look forward to. And also, you know, resistances, you need to get those resistances up. My resistances are not fully capped, but I want to get them capped. And I also want to get my chaos resistance higher as well. But again, I'm going to need better gear. That'll come in time. For the belt, resistances, attributes. Flat evasion is also good in the rings, by the way. So look for that. And then for the boots, you know, you have move speed, evasion, and energy shield, resistances. Reduced chill duration on boots could be good. And also reduced poison duration. And anything regarding like other type of elements that you find quite nasty. Reduction of those elements could also be quite useful, and those are found in these two pieces, I believe. For my charm, I'm using a stun immune charm. This character doesn't have a lot of physical damage reduction from armor, so if I get hit by a physical attack and it makes it through my energy shield and my evasion rating, then I'm going to probably get stunned, right? And so that's what this protects me from. Now, what you can also do is at least in Ultimatum, because there's a lot of effects that slow you in Ultimatum, I also find the charm that prevents slow also useful. The flasks that I have are just flasks with the, charges per second gained. I find that quite useful. That's mostly an Ultimatum thing, because you can pick the wave modifier where monsters don't give flash charges on kill, and that's just kind of like a free wave modifier. So that's something to think about. Probably increased recovery rate or increased amount of recovered is probably the best thing to choose for this. Doesn't matter too much on the mana flask. I don't even have to use mana. Again, this is my passive mana regen. Now, of course, once I actually have 5 supports instead of 3 supports, my skills will cost more. And then, maybe you'll see my mana go down a bit more. But, it's so high right now, I don't even have to buy this on the tree. Okay. Now, in terms of the campaign and the choices of rewards for quest completions during the campaign, it's kind of hard for me to remember where they are. I believe in Act 2, there's a Titan. Oh, it's right here. But you can't tell what you got. But I think you can always go back here and change it to whatever is more beneficial to your character. And that's in Valley of the Titans right here. And I forget if I'm forgetting any other type of choices. Another significant choice or notable choice is the Venom Crypts, and it's this right here. I chose the 30% increased elemental ailment threshold. That will prevent me or make it harder for me to get frozen, shocked, chilled, ignited, that sort of thing. And that's pretty useful. I don't know how my mana is going to be end game with new gear, gear that doesn't have a bajillion mana on it. And so maybe the mana regen would have been better, but so far I have no regrets about this. In terms of Act 1, I can't remember if there's a choice you make on stats for Act 1, but just get what you need. Like if something gives chaos resistance is always usually a good thing if there's a choice that gives you chaos resistance during the campaign. Things like that. The Valley of Titans is over here, I guess, in Act 2, and that's the choice. You can always go back here and switch it. Now, Act 3, what'd I get? Will even tell me what I picked for my choice in Act 3? I don't know. So this is I believe this is the quest completion. I don't know what I picked, but that's just something else to be mindful of. I think that's it. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed watching the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, take care. Bye.